What up, cuz? Fishing Quest Volume 2. In this edition, we're going to fish 4 days and cover locking down one location. And we'll also move on to unhooking certain snags and finish off with catching some locals in the area. Here we go. It's day one. We're going to lock down this location. I have not fished it before, so we're going to figure out what the depth is like here. We're also going to use only these 3 lures across the 4 days. These are the 3 I made for myself, so we'll find out if one has more success than the other, although 2 of them have already caught fish. That's alright. So I'm facing south. We at Lasalle Park in the Hamilton Harbor. And directly across the water is actually where I shot Fishing Quest Volume 1. What? I heard that. Thought it was my lure dropping in, so looked at that shit in slow-mo later on. It kind of looked like a carp, so no worries there. So I always start off at a new location. I'm going to pull quick, keep the lure close to the surface, figure out, slowly drop it down, cast after I comb back and forth across the shoreline, just making sure that I'm not missing any structures that could be out there, big logs, tree branches, rocks, you never know. So I always start with the probably popping around like a foot, dropping down to 2 feet. So I put in a lot of work with that one lure. The first one that I started with was the buzz buck, and now I'm going to move on to this one, which is not jointed. It's just a straight single. See what we can get popping with that one. Now this one weighs a little bit more, so that's also why I went with this one second. We got a little bit more weight. I feel confident that I've worked the area a good amount, so I can continue to get a little bit deeper, start getting closer to the strike zone of a fish. But then again, it all depends, right? Because I'm not really sure what the depth is here and where the drop off is, so that's pretty much what I'm searching for. At the moment, I haven't really gotten very many weeds, which is telling me there's either no weed beds out here or I need to get some more depth in here, which I will do. Across the time that I'm using this lure, I just get lower and lower, and I eventually do find some weeds. They're all located to the right, which is closer to shore, and as I cast to the left, I find I have a little bit more depth to work with over there. So I'm feeling confident, so I get jiggy with it, and I start casting off to the shore side, feeling that digging in the weeds is probably going to be the best idea now that I've found where they are. So I'll just pop that away as my confidence grows. I get lower and lower. Sometimes I can feel the weeds as I'm pulling through the water. But with a good spinner, they usually pop right off. So I use that lure for a while. I'm going to switch over to the last one, which probably dives the deepest. And due to the light end back weight with the heavy set front end weight, it gets down pretty fast. So we're going to see what's popping here, get a little bit deeper. I figured out where roughly the main weed beds are, so now I know how to work along the edges of them to just stay out of the weeds, but low enough that I'm still in the strike zone. So as I continue to work this spot, as I get deeper and deeper, I can eventually start to feel almost where the bottom is. I've almost felt like I've bounced off it once. And as you can see, I get a little bit of weeds there because now I am digging deep. So I'm going to swing over to this side, nothing doing over there. Fished it for probably about 45 minutes. So I'll switch over to this side where my emotional roller coaster begins. As I thought it was a bite, it turns out to be a snag. Not what I'm looking for with what is notably probably my favorite lure. So I'm pretty depressed. I give up with the filming and walk up and down the shoreline and cannot unhook it with everything I've ever tried. So as I was pondering on what to do, I decided I'll grab this rock and tie it to my line. And then I will try to throw the rock out into the water, and hopefully it will unhook the lure, which I think it's wedged between two rocks, and it's not really the hook that's wedged into anything, it's just up right at the tip. So that's going to be the plan here. We're going to try to attach or just wrap the line around this rock and give her a good throw. Now, I've never tried this, and I did spend about half hour walking up and down the shoreline as far as I could to try to unhook this lure. It's probably about 10 feet out roughly, so I'm not really sure how this is gonna go, but I figured I can definitely throw the rock far enough that we should be able to find some success here. I'm definitely not willing to give up on this lure. Usually when it's warmer out in the summer, I'm not gonna lie, I will take off my pants and I'll fucking go in there and swim after my lure. I've done it plenty of times before with Rapala lures. They're always so expensive, I don't like losing those, so I'm not worried about that, but this water is cold as shit and I can't see the bottom, so here goes nothing. So I quickly try to reel this lighted. Doesn't really feel like very much line went out. And it's still hooked. Well, that's some more bullshit. And I am super unimpressed. What are you gonna do? So now I'm debating whether to go out into the water and swim for this thing. Now, other things in the past I've tried is actually tying a piece of stick to the end that is really long and sticking that out and holding the end and trying to wiggle it free from the backside using an extremely long stick, but I did not have access to a long enough stick. So I'm about to give up. I decided to stop recording and I tried a bigger rock and I threw that out there and it worked. It definitely worked. I got my lure back and I'm stoked. So I relocate, figuring I've found the bottom there. I'm confident with where it is, where the drop-off point is, and where all the weed beds are located. So I move out a little bit on this rock point, and I'm still on the south side. You can fish the north side. There's a marina on that side. I have fished over there actually before in the past. Caught a few bass, but I'm not really looking for bass today. We're going to go for some pike. So we're going to finish off the day at this spot right here. Probably been out here for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Haven't had any bites or success. I've seen quite a bit of fish jumping. But it's all good. This is a good way to start off the fishing quest styles. Searching out the location, unhook the snag, and we'll move on from there with hopes for tomorrow. We back. Day number 2. Start off at the same first location. And I'm going to run the same first pattern of lures. And we'll see if we can get any progress here. Now the conditions are completely different. Yesterday it was really cold and the sky was fairly clear. Today it's extremely warm and foggy as hell, so extremely different conditions. Hopefully that will cause for some different action out here on the water, but we'll see what's popping. So today I've also brought a net that I have borrowed off somebody that kind of thought that I needed it. We were talking about how landing a fish in this location, the shoreline right up where you have access to it, it's very shallow, so to prevent a fish from thrashing around on the rocks, I got a net with me, which I apparently needed. What's up? We got a bite, and I wasn't recording, but it's all good. Because I walked back, the camera was all in location, so I just walked back and clicked up on that record. And it looks like we got a bass here. I had also switched lures along the way as I was taking my break with my coffee. And here we go. We got a nice bass. Not too bad. Pretty good size. She had a little bit of fight in her there, and not too much. Really early morning, so it's pretty lazy fish, I'm not gonna lie. But that's a good one there for the first catch at this location, day number 2. I was searching for pike. I caught a bass. No complaints. The lures work. I'm feeling all right. So I moved down a little bit more after having success at the first location. I felt good. So right here, there's a little bridge and a waterway that runs underneath it. So I thought this would be a perfect target zone. There's lots of weeds that almost run to the surface so I can see them. It's much easier to pull in between main weed beds. So nothing doing here though. We worked this spot for about half hour, 45 minutes. I'm not using the buzz blade anymore. I'm using the second in command. Really don't have names for them. I guess I call them names myself, but no names that anybody would recognize. So the third in command is the blade with the yellow and red stripe. And that's how pretty much we'll identify these. As you can see there's always people walking around in the early morning, walking their dogs. I'm always saying what's up to people. They always wonder what I'm doing. They can see that I'm filming, so sometimes they stop, hang out. That's why I don't right now do the live talking, because there's always people running into me. So I'll switch over to that once I get to fishing on a boat. Alright, so it's day 3. I have more confidence on this day, starting with the buzz buck again. Trying to keep it consistent. Try to get some type of data out of this. I'll do things like this often. Comparing lures times a day. All these 4 days will be done in the morning at the same time, right at sunrise for the first 3 hours of the morning. So I have more confidence fishing this spot now since I caught a fish yesterday from here. And each of the prior days I worked my way up to the peak and didn't have any success up there at all. So I thought I'd focus again this morning with the first location. So I worked that lure for a while, and I decided to skip over the prior one that I was using second, and I went to the third one here, because this is the one that I caught the bass on. So we're gonna give this one a whirl. Well, we have a crazy life lesson here learned on day 3. This is the reason why it's taken me so long to put this video up, is I just couldn't decide whether I wanted to use this footage. I'm not gonna lie, I was extremely embarrassed that I overlooked something so ridiculously silly. We'll see what that is. I'd be surprised if somebody already figured it out. You might have by now. The hint would have been on day 2. But we'll go through it. Hopefully you guys won't look down on me. I've been really busy. I usually look in depth into everything, so I can't believe I looked over such a stupid little detail. It's so not like me to look over. But we'll check it. So I've actually moved up to the peak again using this same lure and slowly worked my way back now. Probably been an hour or so since I've been back to the closest location that I've fished ashore. So I'm going to bring up first, before we get into the mass details here, I got this net that I usually never use nets. I always land fish with my hands. I'm not afraid to get in there and get my feet wet close to shore. But the rocks here are very shallow up by the shore, so landing a fish sometimes with your hands, if it's a pike, just doesn't really go so well. So I was talking with a buddy and I got the net. So I kind of thought, you know, everything was going to be going smooth. I wouldn't have to really worry about anything. but that is definitely not the case. So I am using the tutorial, the 3-part tutorial lure, which I caught that other bass on, and prior to this video session, I caught another bass on it as well. So it's proving to be very successful. I'm not sure if it's the blade or the actual style and pattern, but we'll slowly start to figure that out. So I'm dipping into these weeds on this reel, and I feel it. It's on. This is what I'm talking about. I'm stoked. I'm just glancing in there like, this ain't no bass. This ain't no bass. Oh, snap. No. That is not a bass. All right. So I figure, okay, this is the moment where I'm feeling it. This net is going to do all the work for me. The fish isn't too big. I believe that, yeah, it fits pretty. That's probably the biggest fish to put in a net this size, I would assume, in my experience. And here she is. There's a pike, baby. Yeah. I'm missing a little piece of the lip. We got some blood there on the side at the back. You can see that. So we'll get it back in the water quickly. And I dwell on the situation. So I switch over to this lure here. The one that I was using second, and I'm using a third this time. It is the lure I caught the bass in the first episode with. Now I'm dwelling away. I'm staying in this location because I'm a little bit worried about the blood on the side of that fish. I can't figure out where it came from. I gave a little look there while I was holding it. It was definitely evident. So I decided to stay in this location so that I can see, and hopefully this fish will survive. I don't know what that was all about. So it was missing a piece of its lip, which I guess is not rare in this location. A lot of the fish are messed up because nobody's catching and keeping them because they're in Lake Ontario and it's just so polluted that I don't think anybody's eating these fish. So they're pretty beat up. I'm looking forward to in the fall getting up north where I can target some nice clean fresh fish instead of these gruesome monsters. So I fished that area for a while and that pike never popped up anywhere, so I moved down some more. Still working the lure I was working in the other location. But I'm just not feeling it right now. All I can think about is what was going on with the blood on that pike and how that was there. I looked and I couldn't see any wounds or anything, so it was really boggling my mind. So I decided that I was just gonna fish a little bit here and call it a day. It's day. Go home and try to figure out what was popping there. Since I spent the whole prior day trying to figure out what happened to that fish after being almost 100% sure that it was something I did, I eventually did find out what happened. So the first thing I did this morning was come back and scour the shoreline. I couldn't bear thinking that that fish didn't survive, which I don't think it did anyways, but I'm going to start the morning with looking up and down the shoreline to see if I can find it, which will also give me a good opportunity to show you the peak and a good 360 type view of the location and conditions. I'm out here at the peak right now and I've never caught a fish out here, although people say this is where they catch them. I guess that's not true in my case, considering the two documented ones for this series came closer to shore. Across there is the Hamilton Harbor. Nasty as shit. Nobody's fishing over on that side. Get some three-eyed fish or some shit. A nice rainbow popping. So I decided this morning that I was going to try a completely different lure. black one with red, a little bit smaller. I'll take this opportunity here to close up the video. So a few things I want to talk about, and that is the blood on the fish. Now, after hours of internet searching, contacting a few people and trying to figure out exactly what was going on there, we came to the conclusion that the net that I was using was an old net, and it had like a rope style net to it, and in between all the joins it was knotted. So obviously the first thing I find when I start netting fish is never to use a knotted net. So I can't believe that I never really thought that I'd even needed to internet how to properly use a net, considering I've never used one. I guess that's just a silly mistake. I'm pretty embarrassed about it. I'd like to know what anyone else thinks, is if they've made some kind of error like that. You're just sillily overlooking what seemed to be the obvious, but to somebody who's never used a net, I don't know. I guess, in the end, I really should have known, because one of the most important parts of preserving fish for catch and release is making sure that that slime that's on them, as much as that as possible, should stay on that fish. You don't want to touch the fish too much and be rubbing it around, because the more you touch it, the more you're rubbing that slime off, and that helps protect them. So we definitely figured out that while it was thrashing in the net, it definitely peeled off some scales. I inspected the net later on and did find a couple scales on it, so I was even more confident that that is exactly what the problem was. So we'll never make that error again. I scrapped the net. I'm not using it today. I'm definitely not going to be using it again in the future. I know there are certain occasions where a net is an absolute must, like pier fishing, but I'm going to try to stay away from any of that, and I always have in the past, so that probably should not be of concern. Now just a little bit of news. This is going to be the last video that is shot like this. I personally cannot stand the style. Right now I'm using my Canon DSLR, and if anybody ever had one of those or has one and has done video recording, focusing is absolutely ridiculous, and it's near next impossible to get good exposure with good focus. So I'm going to invest in a GoPro, which I've always wanted anyways, and we can only imagine how much amazing shit is going to come out of that. So I will have the opportunity to have two cameras going, but I think a GoPro is pretty key. Catch good sound, the camera will be right up there, and everything will be in focus at all times, and I can record for, I believe it's over 2 hours at a time, as opposed to with the camera I'm using now, it is only 12 minutes. So unfortunately, sometimes, like when I was battling the pike, the camera had run past the 12-minute and it stopped. So conveniently, as the fish kept running out and coming back, I had the opportunity to just step over to the camera and press record again. But I think things will go a lot better when the fall hits, and I get some help on these videos. I'm going to get a few people in on it, so I won't be filming anything myself. We'll get good angles of everything, good commentary as it's happening. No more overdubbing. We'll get that out of the way. And we'll move up to some good popular spots in southern and northern Ontario. I think we might start somewhere around Bay of Quinte. I don't know, maybe pop off to Scugog, up to North Bay, Nipissing area, hit up the French River, one of my favorite locations. So the lure giveaway video is coming up soon, so make sure you subscribe. We are almost there. So I hope you're going to stay tuned, and not just for a lure, but because you enjoy fishing and want to see what's going down with the bucktails. So I hope you're excited like I am. This is only gonna pick up more pace as we get more serious with this. As you can see, I'm still just starting out, so I hope everyone will bear with me and stay in touch. Contact me. I always love input. Non-scripture, what?